So welcome to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the AQA AS Maths past paper of May 2022, paper 2, section A, which is the pure section. Now as always I'll include a question breakdown so you can see which question refers to which topic on the syllabus. So let's get started on this AQA AS Maths paper of May, June 2022, paper 2. And just a little reminder, I will include a question breakdown in the description below so you can see which topic relates to each question. So looking at question 1, let's just zoom in a little bit. It says find the integral of 12x cubed dx, and you need to circle your answer. So this one should be relatively straightforward for you in the fact that we just got to differentiate this expression with respect to x. So here we take the original function, we increase the power by 1, divide by the new power and add c. Then simplifying that fraction, it then becomes a 3 and a 1. So then the correct answer is going to be our second option. Then moving on to question 2, it says given that cos theta minus 20 equals cos 60, which of the following is a possible value for theta? So first things first, let's start by finding the angles of cos 60. Now the graph looks something like this, where that's 90, that's 180, that's 270 and that's 360. So then cos 60 is somewhere around here, and so the equivalent value, if this distance here is 60, that means that this distance here is also going to be 60. So we're looking for theta equals 300. Now we then need to look at the graph transformation of taking away from theta. Now taking away from theta is basically a shift right by 20 degrees. So if my answer here is 300, I need to add 20 to that. So theta is 320 or 80, which is not an option. So then my correct answer is going to be 320. Moving on to question 3, it says the curve has the equation of y equals k to the root of x, where k is a constant. Find the second derivative at the point 4, 2k on the curve, giving your answer as an expression in terms of k. So the first thing we need to do here first is translate this equation of a curve using indices. So it's going to be y equals kx to the power of a half. Then we then work out the differential of that, so dy over dx is going to equal, move the power to the front, then lower the power by 1, so that becomes minus a half, and then from this I can then work out the second derivative of dx squared. So again, move the power to the front, so that then becomes minus a quarter kx, and then lowering the power by 1 becomes minus 3 over 2. Now the next thing that's then left for me to do is then when x equals the x ordinate, which is 4, then the second derivative is going to equal a quarter times k times 4 to the power of minus 3 over 2. So all I need to do is then on the calculator is just type in minus a quarter multiplied by 4 to the power of 3 over 2, in which I get an answer of minus 1 over 32. So therefore this is going to equal minus k over 32, and there is my final answer. And from this you should be able to establish that that would get you 1 mark, that will get you 1 mark, that's going to get you 1 mark. Substituting 4 into the second derivative will get you 1 mark, and then 1 mark for your final answer there. Moving on to question 4, it says the equation of 9x squared plus 4x plus p squared equals 0 has no real solutions for x. Find the set of possible values for p, fully justify your answer. So for this, first things first, we need to state what this actually means. So if there are no solutions, then the discriminant will be less than 0. So then from this I can then establish what my ABC values are. So A is going to be 9, B is going to be 4, and C is going to be p squared. So in substituting those into the discriminant, what do I get? Well, I get 16 minus 4 times 9 times p squared is going to be less than 0. Then simply expanding the brackets out, I get 16 minus 36 p squared is less than 0. Take the 36p squared over to the side, so end up with 16 is less than 36p squared. 16 over 36 is less than p squared. I can simplify that fraction as it becomes 4 over 9 is less than p squared. Then from this, what I then need to do is solve this. So if I just do a little sketch, so if I then work out p squared equals 4 over 9, then that means that p is going to equal plus or minus 2. Then I've put that 3 up there, so let me just correct that. So it should be 2 over 3. So then looking at the graph, if I was to plot this, I've got minus 2 over 3, positive 2 over 3. So here, because I'm wanting p squared is greater than 4 over 9, then what I'm wanting is these values here. So therefore, the final answer is going to be that p has got to be less than minus 2/3, or p has got to be greater than 2/3. Moving on to question 5, it says that Kayla is investigating the function f of x equals 2x cubed minus 7x squared minus 12x plus 45. Kayla makes two statements. Statement 1 is that f of 3 equals 0, and statement 2, this shows that x plus 3 must be a factor of f of x. State with a reason whether each of Kayla's statements is correct. Well, for the first one, let's just work that out. So when x equals 3, f of x is going to equal 2 lots of 3 cubed minus 7 lots of 3 squared minus 12 lots of 3 plus 45, and that does indeed equal 0. So therefore, Kayla's statement is correct. Then for statement 2, we can then say, well, obviously clearly she has made a mistake in the fact that as f of 3 equals 0, then x minus 3 is a factor of f of x, not x plus 3. So therefore, Kayla's is incorrect in terms of her second statement. Now, it is really important that you do state this, because it does say state with a reason whether Kayla's statements are correct. So it's important that you not only do give a reason, but you also state whether she is correct or incorrect. Then for 5b, it then says fully factorize f of x. So if I start, well, I know that x minus 3 is a factor. So I've got x minus 3 and then x squared plus bx plus c, and that's going to be equal to 2x cubed minus 7x squared minus 12x plus 45. Now you can do your own way of factorising this. Some people can do it mentally, do it all in their head. Some can do it by elimination process. Some people can do it more algebraically. So if I just do it algebraically, because that always guarantees to work, I get ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx, and that's just by expanding those two out. Then if I expand these out, I get minus 3ax squared minus 3, let me just get rid of that dot so it doesn't look like a divide, minus 3bx minus 3c. And then if I just add those together, I get ax cubed plus b minus 3ax squared minus c minus 3b x minus 3c. Then comparing the coefficients, I get a equals 2. I get b minus 3a equals minus 7. So therefore b is going to equal minus 1. and minus 3c equals 45. So c equals minus 15. So then substituting these three values into this, what I end up with is x minus 3, 2x squared minus x minus 15. And then using whichever way you want to factorize this, which it does factorize, in which I get 2x plus 5x minus 3, or I can write that as x minus 3 squared multiplied by 2x plus 5. If you want to write the 2x plus 5 first, that's entirely up to you, but any of those two, or three even, would be absolutely fine. Moving on to question 6, it says that an online science website states to find a dog's equivalent human age in years, multiply the natural logarithm of the dog's age in years by 16 and then add 31. And for part 8 it says calculate the equivalent age to the nearest human year of the dog age 5 years. So first things first, let's write down what this is as a formula. So this is going to be the human age equals 16, and then it's going to be natural log ln the dog's age plus 31. So then from this, in part A, what we want to do is to substitute d equals 5. So that then becomes h equals 16 ln of 5 plus 31. And if I just go straight into typing that into my calculator, I get an answer of roughly 57 years. Then for question B, it says that a dog's equivalent age in human years is 40. Find the dog's actual age to the nearest month. So for this, substituting in, what we get is we get that h equals 40. So then substituting that in, we get 40 equals 16 ln 5, or no, ln d plus 31, and that's the substitution. So then what I need to do is make d the subject. So here we get 9 equals 16 ln d, 9 over 16 equals ln d. Then if I take the e of both sides, so I get e of 9 over 16 equals d, and then typing that into my calculator, I get d equals 1.755, but that's in years, and the question wants it to the nearest month. So if I multiply that by 12, I get 21 months, or 1 year and 9 months. Then moving on to question 6c, it says explain why the behavior of the natural logarithm for values close to 0 means that the formula given on the website cannot be true for very young dogs. Now something along the lines of that, as x tends towards in 0, then ln x will become negative. So that's one particular reason. Another explanation you could say is as the dog's age approaches 0, the equivalent human age can become negative. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine for those 2 marks. Then moving on to question 7, it says the expression 3 minus root n over 2 plus root n can be written in the form of a plus bn, where a and b are rational but root n is irrational. Find an expression for a and b in terms of n. So first things first, we've got 3 minus root n over 2 plus root n. Now what we want to do here is rationalize the denominator, so I multiply that by 2 minus root n over 2 minus root n. Now that then becomes, if I just put in brackets, 3 minus root n, 2 minus root n over 2 plus root n to minus root n. Then if I expand the brackets at the top, I'm going to get 6 minus 5 root n minus, or plus n rather, all over, and that's going to be 4 minus n. Then from this, if I just rejig some of this around, and just move around a little bit so I've got a bit more space. So here, if I write it as 6 plus n minus 5 root n over 4 minus n, I can write this as two separate fractions, so that then becomes 6 plus n over 4 minus n minus, or plus, minus 5 root n over 4 minus n. Now the question said for me to write it in the form of a plus b root n. So a is going to be this, and b is going to be that. So here I've got a equals 6 plus n over 4 minus n, and b equals minus 5 over 4 minus n. And there we go. Then moving on to question 8, it says triangle ABC has sides of length m minus n, m and m plus n, where 2n is between 0 and m. Angle A is the largest angle in the triangle. Explain why angle A must be opposite the side of length m plus n. So again, there's only one mark, but you want to make sure you're adding enough detail in this, and something along the lines of that the largest angle in a triangle is always opposite the longest length. And something along the lines of, and also that as m and n are positive integers, or not integers but positive, then m plus n is going to be greater than m, and that's going to be greater than m minus n. So therefore m plus n must be the longest side. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine. Then moving on to question 8ii, it says using the cosine rule, show that cos A equals m minus 4n all over 2 multiplied by m minus n. So looking at this particular triangle, using the cosine rule, well, that's cos A equals b squared plus c squared minus a squared all over 2bc. Now looking at this, if we draw the triangle, that if this is angle A, that's going to be m plus n, and the two other sides are m and n minus n. So this is going to be A, that's going to be B, that's going to be C. So then from this I get cos A equals B, which is m squared, plus c squared, which is m minus n squared, minus a squared, which is m plus n squared, all divided by 2 times m minus n. And then simplifying all of that, I get m squared plus m squared minus 2mn plus n squared minus m squared minus 2mn minus n squared all over 2mn minus n. Now I've not expanded the denominator just in case something cancels, but again, if you did, it shouldn't really make a difference. But basically this will cancel with this, then I've got this will cancel with this. So what have I got left? Well, I've got m squared minus 4mn over 2m minus n, and then I can take an m from each of those terms, which then finally leaves me with m minus 4n over 2m minus n, which is what they wanted me to show. Then moving on to question 8b, it says you are given BC is the diameter of a circle and A lies in the circumference of a circle where the value of m is 8. Calculate the value of n. Well, if BC is the diameter, then the opposite angle A must equal 90 degrees. And again, that's the circle theorem of angles in a semicircle. So therefore, cos A equals cos 90, which equals 0. So then from B, or from AII, we then get 0 equals, and it's m minus 4n over 2m minus n. So then from this, if we then want to solve this, well, the numerator can't equal 0, so therefore 0 equals m minus 4n. And well, if we multiply that, take this to the side, it's going to equal 0 anyway. And so therefore, what we get is 4n equals m. Now it tells us that m is 8, so when m equals 8, n is going to equal 2. And there is my final answer for that one. Moving on to question 9, it says the diagram below shows the graphs of y equals x squared minus 4x minus 12 and y equals x plus 2. And for 9a it says write down the 3 inequalities which together describe the shaded region. So let's have a look. Just zoom out so we can see the question and the graph in all its entirety. So looking at the 3 inequalities, I've got this orange line, which is y equals 0. I've got this blue line, which is y equals x plus 2. And I've got this parabola, which is poorly drawn over as x squared minus 4x minus 12. Now in terms of the inequalities, well, for the first one it's below the blue line, so y is less than x plus 2, and because it's a solid line it's got to be less or equal to. Now it's also above the y-axis, so it's going to be y is greater or equal to 0. Then for the curve, it's above the curve, but also where y is above the where the curve is above the y-axis. So for that green one, it's going to be where y is greater or equal to x squared plus minus 4x minus 12. So my 3 inequalities are those 3 there. Moving on to 9b, it says find the coordinates of A, B and C. So let me just go back to this diagram here. So AB is the solutions to y equals x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. Actually, it's not y equals, let me get rid of that. So therefore, if I factorize this, I get x minus 6x plus 2. So x equals 6 or minus 2. Now going back, so that means that this value here is going to be minus 2. This value here is going to be 6. So from this, I can then work out what the coordinates of A is. So A has got a coordinate of minus 2, 0, and B has got a coordinate of 6, 0. Now the next thing is for me to find C. Now C is the intersect of y equals x squared minus 4x minus 12 and y equals x plus 2. So to word intersect means simultaneous equations. So I've got x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals x plus 2. If I then stick them all onto one side, I get x squared minus 5x minus 14 equals 0. I can then factorize that. So I've got x minus 7, x plus 2 equals 0. So x equals either 7 or minus 2. Now, from looking at the graph, x has got to be a positive answer because we already know intercepts at minus 2. So therefore, C is going to have an x ordinate of 7. And if it's got an x ordinate of 7, it's going to have a y ordinate of 9. And again, if you're not sure about how I've got that, is because when substituting that into this, I can then find the y ordinate. So there are my 3 values. Now moving on to question 9c, it says find the exact area of the shaded region. And again, this is worth 6 marks, but I've just brought the graph back just so you can see what it is I'm going to be doing. So for this, the shaded area is equal to the area of the triangle, which I'm about to draw in a second, minus the area under the curve between B and C. Now the triangle in question is this triangle here, which if I just label the points, this is -2, this is 6, this is 7, sorry, this is 9 rather, and that point there is 7. So all I've done is just mark the coordinates of A, B and C. So then from this, if we will work out the area of the triangle, well, because I know the base and the height, so the height is 9, so the area is using base times height. Well, I'm not going to write it, I'm just going to do it. So here I've got the base, which is 9. I've got the height, which is 9. So that's going to be 9 times 9 divided by 2, which is 40.5. I'm just going to put a little bubble around that. Now the next thing for me then to do is to work out what this area here is. Now that pink area is the area under the curve, the quadratic curve of x squared minus 4x minus 12. And the limits are going to be between 7 and 6, and that's going to be integrating with regards to dx. So then all that's left for me to then do to work this out. Now if you've got a Casio calculator, you can actually type this into your calculator to get the answer, but as this question is worth 6 marks, I personally would show a bit of working out. So I would start by integrating the quadratic equation, so that becomes x cubed over 3 minus 4x squared over 2 minus 12x, and I've got the limits of 7 and 6. So then typing this into my calculator, I get an answer of 13 over 3. So that means then the shaded area, and we want to use exact values, is going to be the area of the triangle, which is 40.5 or 40.5, minus the area under the curve between limits of 7 and 6, which is 13 over 3. And if I type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 36 and 1/6, and that's square units. Then moving on to question 10, we get that a bottle of water has a temperature of 6 degrees when it is removed from the refrigerator. And just make that a little bit, there we go, a bit center. So it says it is placed in a room with a temperature of 20 degrees. 10 minutes later, the temperature of the water is 12 degrees. The temperature of the water at t degrees at time t minutes after it is removed from the refrigerator can be modelled by the equation of t equals 20 minus a e to the power of minus kt. And for question 10a, it says find the value of a. So for this, one thing we know is that when t equals 0, when the time equals 0, big T is going to equal 6 degrees, because that's the temperature of the cup when there is no time, when it's been taken out of the fridge for 0 minutes. So if I substitute those numbers in, I get 6 equals 20 minus a e to the minus k times 0. Now looking at this, that's going to equal e to the 0, and e to the 0 is just 1. So what I end up with is 6 equals 20 minus a, so therefore a must equal 14. Then for question 10b, it says calculate the value of k, giving your answer two significant figures. So for this, we know that as a equals 14, I can substitute that into the formula. So I've got t equals 20 minus 14 e to the minus kt. Now we've been given a set of values, so we know that when T equals 10, big T equals 12. So substituting those numbers into this formula, we get 12 equals 20 minus 14 times e to the power of minus k times 10. So then doing a bit of rearranging, so what I get is I'm going to get minus 8 equals minus 14e to the minus 10k. Take the 14 over, so I get minus 8 over minus 14 equals e to the minus 10k. We then get 4 over 7 equals e to the minus 10k. I can then take the ln of both sides, so ln of 4 over 7 equals minus 10k. So k equals ln of 4 over 7 divided by minus 10. And if I type that into my calculator and round it to two significant figures, I get a k value of 0.056. And that's to 2SF. Then moving on to 10C, it says using this model, estimate how long it takes the water to reach a temperature of 18 degrees after it's been taken out the refrigerator. So again, what I can do is first of all write down the formula now that I've worked out the value of k. So t equals 20 minus 14 e to the minus 0.056 little t. So there's my master formula. So all I then need to do is substitute 18 into there. So here I get 18 equals 20 minus 14e to the minus 0.056t. T is what I want to work out, little t that is. So here I end up with minus 2 equals minus 14e to the minus 0.056t. Divide the minus 14 over, so I get a seventh equals e to the minus 0.056t. Take the ln of both sides, so I'll get ln of 1/7 equals minus 0.056t. So therefore t equals ln of 1 over 7, all divided by minus 0.056, in which then I get a t value of 34.7, which is roughly 35 minutes. Then moving on to the last question of section 8, says explain why the model may not be appropriate to predict the temperature of water 3 hours after it's taken from the refrigerator. Well, basically something along the lines of that the conditions may change. So you want to write something in details about the conditions may change, but you don't want to write that, you actually want to give detail of this. So you could say something along the lines of that someone may drink the water. And another common answer would be that after 3 hours, or not 3 years, I don't know what I'm writing there. So after 3 hours, you would expect the water to be at room temperature. So something along the lines. Also, you could be looking at, someone might open a window and may make it cooler or may make it warmer. So room temperature, the actual temperature in the room might be affected by something. So as long as you're going to detail about something about that, it should be fine for that single mark. And that concludes section A.